I mentioned Yogananda many times in my videos, and there is comments saying, okay, if he was so enlightened and he was so close to God, why he only lived so short? He was like, I think he was
It's a good
61 or something.
question.
Yeah. So can you
59.
59? Yeah. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, if I could answer that question, Sergey, I would be a guru myself. But there are certain mysteries. I can just say that he had a sense that he would not live a long life. It is said that yogis, in highly advanced states that he was presumably in, uh, can control things like their time of passing and their health and all that. On the other hand, everybody has karma. Even great yogis have karma. The body has its own uh, history and um, its own karma. And so somehow he knew, and maybe it doesn't matter. It seems to matter to us how long, we live. But, I think maybe in highly advanced spiritual people, longevity isn't as important. There are great yogis, of course, who live, legendary yogis who live hundreds of years, yogis who we can verify live good long lives, but many of them die young. Ramakrishna was not that old when he died. I mean, people, Vivekananda, who was Yogananda's great predecessor, he didn't even reach 40. But they make a big impact. And Yogananda worked very hard. Um, he had certain conditions that were debilitating or difficult for him in the last few years of his life. Um, Things happen to the body. And so I don't know that there's an answer to your question, but I do know he sensed, because he said so, that he wouldn't live a long life, and that he worked really hard the last few years of his life to ensure that his legacy would live on after him. That's when he wrote Autobiography of a Yogi and a whole lot of other works and essays that were compiled subsequently by his followers into books like his, 2 volumes on the Bhagavad Gita and all the others. And he worked very hard to ensure that his organization would be properly funded, that the disciples would be prepared to carry on his work. That was hard work, and it takes a toll on the body.
Yeah, another theory is that he had a mission to fulfill, and he came to this earth to do this, to fulfill his mission, to write these teachings and to bring these teachings to people. And then 59 years, that was enough for him to do this, and then he left.
Yeah. And in
Yeah,
his time, that was probably an average lifespan.
yeah.
He died in
Also,
1952.
yeah. Also, Osho. Have you heard about Osho?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, Osho. He was also 60.
I have written about him and all the other gurus. Yeah, he didn't live a long life,
He
but
was 60 years
he
old,
didn't take
60 or
very good
61.
care of himself.
But he
Yeah.
knew that too, and he was like, he was in his deathbed, and he said, "Guys, don't do a lot of ceremony. Just," he said, "change my socks." It was funny because he had a good sense of humor.
Yes, he did.
He said, "Change my socks so nobody see me in my old socks." And he gave this little speech before that, and he said, "Don't do this lot of ceremonies, just a little bit, and board my body. I'm going away." He's an amazing teacher too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
and
read
controversial.
he's very popular here in Eastern Europe.
Is
Not too
he?
many people heard about
Interesting.
Yogananda here, but Osho is very a lot of books and people follow him. Yeah,
Really? I
yeah,
didn't know that.
very popular here.
Wow.
Yeah, he was different. He had a sense of humor and
Yes, it was very controversial, his time here. And, well, there's a lot to be said about Osho and what happened and things that went on in his name. And
yeah,
it was not all peachy and
yeah.
flowers.
Because with his story, there is a lot of controversial stuff, like you said. With Yogananda, there is nothing. There is straight, beautiful everything. Everything
There
is
were rumors, and I
yeah,
had to investigate all the rumors. And there's people who, to this day, will argue, that Yogananda did misbehaved in certain ways, but I was not able to find any really convincing evidence of that. Uh, and some people were disappointed because they thought I would investigate and prove that he was not what people think he was and all that. So I think you see it with all the gurus on both ends of the spectrum. You see people who want to make them into gods and forget that they were also human beings and with all the quirks of human personality. And then there's people who want to demonize them and make them into terrible human beings that exploited others, and that's far from the truth as well. And they want to conveniently leave out that they affected people's lives for good. So Osho, for example, is seen as a villainous cult leader in many people's eyes, and he did some very strange things. But when you talk to people who knew him and were disciples of his, you find that he had a very positive effect on many people's lives. There were also wounded people. So
yeah. He still does with his teachings, with his books, and he never wrote a book like Yogananda did, but his speeches were recorded and transformed into
yeah,
books. There's like 600 books. It's a crazy amount of.
I
They're short,
know, I know, and some of them are quite brilliant, actually.
brilliant, exactly. Yeah. The one is called Meditation. It's a little brochure like this, and it's amazing. I never read somebody to explain meditation so beautifully. I was buying that brochure and giving it to everybody. I remember. Yeah. What do you think about Mahavatar Babaji? Do you still think he's still around? He's still alive?
That's another question that's above my pay grade, as we say in America. I can't answer that. Um, you hear stories. There are spiritual teachers in India, gurus, who say they met Babaji in the Himalayas and he trained them and he told them to teach and all that. Who knows? You can't believe everything these people say. Maybe they made it up. Maybe they met somebody they think is Babaji. We just don't know. There are people who say they are Babaji.
Of course, yeah. There's people say that
So
they are Jesus.
that's exactly right. There was once, about 30 years ago, some American was traveling around claiming he was Babaji. He was a young guy. It was almost like something Saturday Night Live would do. It was just, and there were people who believed him. It was very strange. But Babaji's a legendary figure, so maybe he still exists. Maybe he's keeping the world alive, in his own conscious, with by through his consciousness. Maybe he no longer exists. I I have no idea.
I
But
think it says in the book.
what's that?
Yeah, I think Yogananda says that he's been around for about 5,000 years or something like that.
whatever it is, hundreds, thousands. No one can really know these things. If you trust Yogananda and his lineage, then the stories that are told about him, about Babaji, about him appearing to them, then you will trust that those are true. But anything that happens after that, we only have other people's word for it. And to me, it doesn't matter. What matters are the teachings. Whether Yogananda was an avatar or just an ordinary human being who was a great teacher and wise man, that's not for me to say. Whether Babaji is real or not real is not for me to say. What matters to me are the teachings and the effect they have on people's lives.
Have you ever been to Kumbh Mela?
Kumbh Mela, yes. I was at the Mahakumbh Mela in 2001, and it was one of the great experiences of my life. It was the most spectacular. I had never seen so many people in one place in all my life. And I grew up in New York City. I thought I knew what crowds were like. This was beyond anything. And it was just a deep and powerful experience. It was chaotic too and exhausting, but it was quite the experience. I highly recommend it once in your life.
So it's one every 12 years, right?
Yes, but there are smaller ones in between those 12 years, every 6 years, every 3 years in different places.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, by Indian standards, the smaller ones are not as big as the every 12-year ones in Allahabad, now called Prayag. But by Western standards, there's still a lot of people at all of them. There's millions.
Going back to the meditation, when you started doing research and all this, why did you decide to go into meditation? It was a trend back then, or you just needed, you felt like your soul really needed that? What happened?
Yeah, it was both. I was a young, struggling guy wanting to know the answers to life and wanting to be happier, wanting to have less anxiety and troubles and worries. And you read all these things about yoga and Zen Buddhism and all the things we were reading. And it talks about having, the true self being eternal and infinite peace and love and a profound awareness. And you think, well, if that's within me, it makes sense. How do I find that? How do I manifest that? How do I experience that? And all the teachings say, well, you should meditate. You should meditate. One of the things that appealed to me when I started studying Indian philosophy was no one said you have to believe in this or you'll go to hell. It was, these are the insights that come to us from our tradition. And you can think it through yourself. But the important thing is the personal transformation that comes about if you do these practices. And the primary practice that kept coming up was meditation. So when the opportunity came up to learn a method of meditation, I did some experimenting, and it was just part of the world I traveled in back in those days that people were talking about these things. And then, of course, in 1968, the Beatles went to India to practice TM with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And that was in all the newspapers and all the magazines. And, if there was an internet in those days, it would have exploded because, people were very aware suddenly of this thing called meditation and these teachers called gurus and all that. And so I was part of that. and took it up, and it passed the test. It had a big effect on my life. It changed my life permanently. To this day, I advocate it and recommend it and practice it. And now, of course, at least here in America, but probably anywhere because of the internet, meditation is easily available. You don't have to, it's you have to be very discerning about which method you use, because there's a lot of erroneous teachings out there because people want to make money. But it's easy to find authentic practices and learn them and benefit from them now. And Yogananda was a critical figure in making that happen.
Yeah. But not every meditation technique it suits everybody.
That's right. That's right.
You
And
would,
there's, even in each tradition has many methods. There are many forms of Buddhist meditation, many forms of yogic meditation, but people should find the one that works best for them, and find a proper teaching. The problem I find with people is they hear about meditation and think they could just do it without any actual training or instruction. And that's not a wise way to do it.
mm-hmm. Now, with TM, you practicing TM or you practicing Kriya Yoga at this time?
No, I learned TM in 1968, and I have a number of practices I do, but TM is still central.
Now, with TM, there is a controversy too, because it's expensive to pay for the mantra. It's around $2,000, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of
No,
people,
not anymore.
not
Not
anymore.
anymore.
How much is it right
Yeah,
now?
they got a little smarter and realized there was a big backlash against the expensive
Yeah.
teaching, so it's much more reasonable now. But the erroneous thing about that, Sergey, is people think you're paying for a mantra. No, that's not it. You're paying for the time and expense of paying rent and all that, because the course of instruction is several steps over a period of days and evenings. And so it's not like you're buying a product. You're paying for a course of instruction. And that, in that context, it's reasonable. The teachers spend a lot of time. They have to have a place that you pay rent on, and so you're paying for that.
Okay. Self-realization teachings back in the 90s when I was taking them, they were like $32 or something for the whole course. I don't remember.
Yeah.
You just covered the postage and the printing of the papers. They used to print them.
Yeah. And now I think you can download the lessons.
Yeah. Pretty sure, you can download that.
And there's a fee. They have to cover their expenses, so you pay something. I don't know what it is now.
But with TM, and it was $2,000 because I was a student. They gave me a break. It was $900. It was $1,800, and I paid $900 something because I was.
It's a lot less now.
Right.
You
Yeah.
should have waited, Sergey.
I didn't know. I wanted to get the teaching right away, but I didn't get any support over there. I got a lot of support in self-realization, a lot of support. I mean, the books and the lessons, and I read Autobiography of Yogi, like you, probably 5-6 times. And you study, you practice, you read the lessons every week, and it helps every 2 weeks. Here, I was in Reseda, California. I think I went one time. They gave me a little bit of training, like 15, 20 minutes. I paid. He told me the mantra in my ear for some reason, secret. There was nobody around, just two of us. And that's it. And I never got any support, anything. So I was on my own with my mantra.
That's I'm sorry to hear that, because back in the day, there were centers everywhere, and they would have regular ongoing programs for people who learn to meditate, and you would learn more. And it was all free because when you paid the original course, it was a lifetime thing. You can go anytime and you could meditate in the group and you could, hear talks and lectures and, all that. But maybe a time came when those local centers were not easily accessible or they didn't exist. I don't know, but back when I was involved in the 60s and 70s, it was like what you described with SRF. There were places to go and centers and community
Yeah.
and ongoing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is no SRF here in Eastern Europe. I'm not sure. I may Google, maybe I find something, but
You might.
yeah.
I would be surprised. I wonder if Autobiography of a Yogi is it in Eastern European languages?
I've seen it in Russian, yeah. There was like an
Yeah,
esoteric store here in Chisinau, capital of Moldova, and they had a lot of literature, a lot of books written by
yeah,
Osho, but I found Autobiography of Yogi in Russian over there. Yeah, and
interesting.
about Babaji, everything you can find about anybody. Yeah, people go to India right now, they travel, they come back a little bit enlightened, they make money. You know how it is.
I do.
Yeah. So, which part of the meditation it suits you better? The Hong So, the Om technique, or the Kriya?
um, I've practiced all of them, and they all have value. And my TM practice still has great value. Uh, so I don't want to rank them or put them in any kind of order. Everybody has their own path. And I find that if you're discerning uh, and you pay attention to what works for you, you'll find practice or practices that suit you best. And it doesn't mean you have to make a decision and give up everything else for all time. Uh, we're everybody's path is different. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's mind is different. And we change. So there are times when I favor one method because it feels like that's what I need. Um, and I think, we have that freedom to do that, but we have to be discerning and pay attention to our needs and be flexible. Um, I find sometimes that people get rigid, and on the other extreme, people don't make commitments. They just dabble in in these different techniques and never do any of them long enough to see if they work over time. So my feeling is we should experiment and try different things. But if something seems promising, do it for a while and see if it really, see if it holds up. Don't just, try it once and say, okay, I did that and then move on. Ramakrishna used to say that, this is in the 19th century. In the 19th century, even then, when we didn't have exposure to so many different practices, he would say that experimenting is great, but it's like looking for water. You can dig a lot of holes looking for water, but if you don't dig deep enough, you'll never discover the water. You just go around making holes. And so we need to give practices the opportunity and take them deep.
Okay. In your opinion, based on your experience, lifetime with yoga and meditation, what are the biggest benefits of yoga and meditation? If you can explain for my viewers.
Well, the benefits are multiple, for one thing, and different people will experience them in different ways. But if I had to say the primary thing, it's inner peace. It's a quieter mind, a more expansive mind, and a sense of contentment and stability inside. In the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about yogis having equanimity, meaning inner stability, inner contentment, strength. Uh, in loss and gain, in defeat and victory, in pain and pleasure. So no matter what the conditions outside are, no matter how much challenging, how difficult, or how beautiful and joyful, we maintain a certain amount of unshakable peace. We don't always have that. I've been meditating for more than 50 years. I still get shaken up. I still get angry. I still get upset, but I recover much more quickly. It doesn't last as long. I return to some inner stability, and that give the credit for that for all these years of practice. And I think that to me is the thing that I hear most from people who are on this kind of spiritual path, that inner stability and calm.
Okay, yoga and meditation requires discipline. You have to discipline yourself to do the exercises or to sit down and start
Yeah.
breathing and doing
Yeah.
Kriya or Tiyam. Now, how about regular people who don't want to go through this? How can they find inner peace without meditation?
Well, you gotta, well, I'm sure there's many ways. There's breathing practices, there's, prayer, uh, there's exercises, physical exercises, but everything requires some investment of time. You can pop a pill every day, but then you're going to have to deal with side effects. My You're bringing up a very important point, because I can't tell you how many people I meet who say, yeah, I used to meditate, but I don't have time anymore. Or I used to do yoga every day, but I don't have time anymore. But what are they spending their time on? I'm sure there's always something they're wasting time on. To me, investing whatever amount of time, 15 minutes, 20, 30, once a day, twice a day, these are investments. Just like you invest time in eating properly, in sleeping properly, in taking a bath, just like you maintain your car and you clean your house. These are things we do to maintain a good life. I put meditation and all the other practices in that same category. I brush my teeth every day. That takes time. I shower every day. That takes time. I sweep the floor. Whatever I do, I make sure I eat. Those take time. So I see my meditation as an investment in a better life. And if I care about my professional life and my family life, I do those things better because I meditate. It's not like I'm sacrificing anything. I'm investing. That's how I look at it.
Okay. Now, regular people want to live a long life, to be healthy, successful, have a good relationship and family, have money. But when they look at the gurus that passed away at 59 or at 60, they may think, okay, what's the point of this discipline of meditating and doing the yoga if I'm just going to be gone, soon? So it doesn't make
Well,
sense. I'd rather be merry.
well, let me put it this way, Sergey. Everybody has different karma. Some people are going to live long lives, some people are not. Mozart didn't make it to 40, but look at the legacy he left. So you can live till 100 and waste your time. And some people die like Yogananda at 59, but they leave a mark for generations and generations. So longevity isn't everything. But however long you're going to live, you want to be happy, you want to be peaceful, you want to have love and joy and all those things. And so these teachings, these methods enhance those aspirations. I'm a happier person because, I discovered these teachings. Um, I don't. So far, I guess I've outlived people like Yogananda, but I could die tomorrow, and we all can. Those are things we. Let me put it this way: I think the chances of living a long, good life are improved if you do if you practice these teachings. They just improve the odds. They don't guarantee a long life. They don't guarantee you're going to have everything you ever wanted, but they make it more likely that you will. They'll make you a better person. That's how I see it.
Yeah, definitely. You've probably been to SRF conventions.
Yes, and I used to go
When you
every
go to
year
the
in LA.
yeah, when you go to the convention, you see all those speakers. They come and they speak, and you're amazed because they're like 90 years old, and they have such a clear mind. Beautiful. I mean, and that's the best example, at least for me, was when I saw them speaking at 90 years old and 80. There was one
Mm-hmm.
monk in Hollywood Temple, Brother Bhaktananda. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you remember him. And
Mm-hmm.
he was in his 90 when he passed away, but he was such a beautiful, bright mind.
I have met I have met a lot of uh, monastics in Yogananda's lineages, but also others. I've been to India, I've been to ashrams, and they're wonderful older people that seem very saint-like to me, and it's a beautiful thing to be around them. But it's also true that many great spiritual teachers and legendary gurus died young, left their bodies, at an early age. So there's a certain karma that's a mystery about that, and that's why length of time is not necessarily the only criterion to judge people by, or the value of their practices.
Okay, Philip. Now, if people want to find more about you, about your work, about your books or
Yes.
teachings, would you like to share that?
Yeah, I have a website, philipgoldberg.com. I have a podcast that airs on the mindbodyspirit.fm network called Spirit Matters. Uh, but my website will have links to all my books and things like that. And if you want to be on my mailing list, because I do a lot of online teachings and courses, and I don't always remember to put them on my website. So I send out mailings, and you can subscribe, and I'll put you on my mailing list. You can find me at my website.
Okay, Philip. Now, what's your main drive at this age to keep doing this? Writing books, lessons, sending these letters, and what's your
Yeah,
main drive right now? Right now, you could be just somewhere chilling in Florida.
I know. Life is strange, Sergey. I live in the small town in Western Massachusetts here in America, and most of the people who I know here, who are older, are retired. And I'm busier than I ever was. There were just things I want to things I want to work at and write, um, that, I just have to do. And so I'm doing them. And I learn from doing it. I learn from doing the podcast. I learn from researching books. I learn from teaching an online course. And that, keeps my mind constantly discovering new things. Maybe that'll help keep me young. So I don't know. It's just that phase of my life. I'm feeling very productive. And maybe, there's something I want to leave behind, some legacy.
Okay. So you feel like you have a mission to fulfill and you have to do all this.
That's part of it, yes. And part of it is just simply, as I said, I learn a lot, and I'm still curious and still eager. But also, there you reach a certain age and you say, well, I learned a lot. I'm still learning, but I learned a lot, and maybe I have a certain skill at using words. Um, I feel it's a sense of responsibility to share.
Okay, so don't you think that the learning never stops? On this plane
That's
or on
right.
the other side, it never ever stops. It goes like in a spiral, goes up or down.
I agree. To me, the learning never stops. The learning and the personal transformation never stops. Um, and if people experiencing it as stopping, that's dangerous to me. That make you become stagnant and you stop growing. If the teachings of uh, from the yoga tradition are true, then even when I die, that's going to continue. The learning is going, there'll be more learning. There'll be another life. So I think, that's to me what, human life on earth is like a curriculum, and there's always something new to master.
Okay, I interviewed a lot of near death experiencers, and most of them
Ah,
say that when they got on the other side, they knew everything. They suddenly knew
mm.
everything. Now, my question is this: what's the point of learning here all the time if you're going to get on the other side anyway? You're going to know everything right away.
You know, what do they mean by they knew everything? Maybe that means they knew the essential truth of existence or the cosmic perspective. But it doesn't mean they know everything. Or maybe it means they can know everything. And yet they came back. So why did they come back if they knew everything and there was nothing else to be done or do? There must have been some reason. And so I question whether they really knew everything. Maybe that was what they experienced at the moment, but they still, I've talked to people who had those experiences too, and it was bliss and it was all light, but there was something that said, nope, you're not done yet. Come on back.
They had to finish something. That's why they came back.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they forget almost everything when they come back here. For some reason, it's erased. The memory is erased. Right? Maybe
Like
just
our past lives are erased.
yeah. Maybe just to protect the human, because if you know all your past lives, you go crazy in 5 minutes. You can handle you can
It's
handle your
like,
memories
look,
here.
we don't even remember everything about the current life.
All right.
We forget things. What's your earliest memory? Is probably something when you were 3 or 4 or 5 years old. You don't
Mhm.
remember being an infant in the cradle. You don't remember your first words. Unless somebody took a video of you
Back
when
then, no, no
you're.
videos. Yeah.
That's right.
All right, Philip. Now let me ask you a question. I ask almost everybody: what's your definition of freedom?
Ah, I was thinking about that when I saw the title of your show, and what I'm moved to say is, and this comes back to your very first question about how I got on these paths. Back in the 60s when I was a student, freedom was everything. We just wanted freedom. Freedom, but in those days we defined it in political terms and social terms. And one of the things that I learned early on was that freedom is an inner state. Freedom is about freeing your consciousness from ignorance and from habit and conditioning, and freeing your heart and your soul from toxic emotions. After we're finished here, I'm going for a hike in the woods. Depending on my state of consciousness, that will either be a sublime and glorious spiritual experience, or it could be just ordinary. It depends on my consciousness. Freedom is like that. You can be wealthy, you can be self-employed, so you're not answering to anybody, you're not oppressed, you're and still be a prisoner to your own mind and your own emotions. And you can be struggling, you can be exploited, you can be uh, have very limited options in your outer life, but inside you can be free. And that's the critical central thing to me: freedom of the consciousness.